Take valerian herb before drinking your pee. I'm not going to tell you anything about drinking your pee. It's already a part of Ayurveda. It's written up in the Dhamma Tantra as to how to go about it and what are the benefits. And you can look it up on YouTube, on not YouTube, on the internet in general, how people talk about it. Except I'll highlight the fact that it does settle the Vata dosha. So if you're the worrying type, if you're a headstrong person, if you're think you're a smart ass or something, but you have an overactive mind, it will settle that down, and it'll also settle down hostility to a minor degree. Mostly it settles down worrying and overthinking, people who think too much. But if anything is related to a psychosomatic illness, anything related to a psychosomatic illness, it will take care of it, because it takes care of thoughts that need not be there because the brain is overthinking, be they subconscious or conscious thoughts, because, psychosomatic is mostly subconscious. And it's superb at doing this, but it's kind of difficult to take it because we in the West tend to have very poorly developed, poorly evolved sensibilities of smell and taste. And it's not for lack of intelligence that we have these problems. It's actually just more difficult to purify the sensibility of smell and taste than it is to purify the sensibility of devotion and speech or hearing, because devotion is one of the more elevated sensibilities, much more so than is the sensibility of hearing. And being more refined, they don't make a big impression on the physiology, on the mind, and so it's very easy to evolve them. While smell is the grossest of the sensibilities, and consequently it's the hardest to develop. So usually a yogi will not reach enlightenment through the sense of smell or taste because it's just too darn difficult. But there's nothing wrong with developing those sensibilities and cognizing the self through those sensibilities. It's just more difficult. So drinking one's pee is specifically designed for biofeedback, so as to experience the self, since it is the self that created the pee. And the kidneys are not designed to get rid of poison, so you can't say what Western medicine says, that pee is poison and why would you want to drink it, because the kidneys don't know what poison is. They know what excess is. The liver is the one that deals with poison, but the liver doesn't pee, does it? It processes poison, it processes nutrition, it does conversions. So it knows what poison is, and it knows what nutrition is, and can recognize the difference. And a healthy liver does its job. But the kidneys don't know what poison is, they don't know what nutrition is, all they know is what is excessive. And when they decide what is excessive, they get rid of it. They pass it into the bladder so that the body can get rid of it. Whether it's excessive water in the blood, excessive sugar, in the case of a diabetic whose pancreas is not doing its job. Now, the kidneys can't pass everything that they don't normally pass. If another organ fails to do its job, for instance, if the liver fails to convert ammonia into urea, kidneys can't help out. The ammonia will stay behind and back up in the bloodstream. The kidneys will not be able to get rid of it. So the liver has to function in that area, or else the person gets overloaded with ammonia, gets hyperammonemia. I always get that word wrong. Which is weakness, strong heartbeat, rapid heartbeat, candida overgrowth, alcoholism, self-induced, various things that are not very pleasant. Anyway, so the kidneys only know to get rid of whatever is excessive. And oddly enough, this is a little known fact that male urine contains more urea than does female urine in all of the mammals, the mammalian various genus and species. And it makes sense because the female has to carry the newborn in the womb. And so it makes sense that her physiology would recycle nitrogen and waste less of it. While the male's job, having a penis, the woman does not, is to go around and mark the territory so that the female can have a nice wide range of protection. And so he marks off the territory of the home while she provides the home for the newborn by recycling her nitrogen, and the male gets rid of it and wastes it because urea is pretty stinky, as everybody knows. Back in the 80s, we outlawed the sale of alcoholic beverages at stadiums during soccer or football events or whatever, because there was a high incidence, an elevated incidence of riots breaking out in the stands, in the grandstands. And it came about by multiple factors, only one of which was easy to control. And so they controlled the alcohol factor, but it was a multitude of factors. The guys, he was mostly made up of guys whose urine has very high nitrogen content, and they were peeing in the grandstands because they didn't want to leave their spot to go pee at the bathroom. They didn't want to miss anything happening at the scene, or they were lazy, or both. So they peed where they were, and they were drunk, slightly or very, and they were all excited from the game, and excited from the male ego surrounding them, and encouraging them to be even more male ego, and so fights broke out, and turned into riots. So alcohol was restricted, and it took care of the problem. Even though other things were happening, it was the alcohol that was easy to control. Anywho, it kind of points out the fact that male urine is stinky because it has a high urine content. In fact, if you raise tilapia fish in ponds, it is the men who should be peeing into the ponds to get an algae bloom to feed the tilapia, much more so than should the women. If you have a choice, make sure it's the guys who pee into the pond, because that will help feed the algae. The algae will bloom and feed the tilapia, and you'll have tilapia up your gazoo to eat, or whatever it is you do with it. So getting back to drinking pee, so let's see, where was I? So what I learned is, I learned a long time ago when I first experimented with this over a decade ago, that to make it easier, see, pee is very alkaline, but it also tastes disgusting and smells disgusting, right? But it's also alkaline, and that contributes to its disgust. In fact, that's the controlling factor that you can manipulate to remove the disgust. All you have to do is add a little lemon juice, or a little bit more. It depends on how much, you think your pee is disgusting. You add enough until it's no longer disgusting. And strangely enough, the pee begins to effervesce sometimes, due to the fact that sometimes the pee contains a lot of bicarbonation. And you wouldn't know it because it's alkaline, so it's locked up. You add a little acid, like phosphoric acid is added to Coca-Cola to help release the bicarbonation more readily. Likewise, if you add lemon juice to pee, it releases the bicarbonation, and you get a fizzy drink without the sugar. So if you add sugar, now you've got bicarbonated lemonade. If you're into sweet things, you would add sugar in addition to the lemon juice. So those are ways to make it easier to drink, but there still may be no desire. This takes weeks, if not months, of training, of biofeedback training, repetitive experience, to actually come to want to drink your pee. Trust me, it's not, and I know, it's not an easy thing to drink, but it is possible to want to. It just takes a lot of practice. But in lieu of practice, if you want to take a shortcut, so you've made it taste better by adding lemon juice or something similar to it, something acidic. Maybe you've even added sugar. So you've made it taste better, but you still lack the desire to drink it. Okay? This is what you do. You go to the herb store or your health food store, you go online, and you get an herb called valerian. Valerian. Victor, let's see, Victor, Apple, Lucy, Edward, Robert, Independent, Apple, Nancy, valerian. It was known of as far back as in Western culture, as far back as the ancient Romans knew about it. It's normally touted as a sleep inducement aid, an aid. It won't put you to sleep. It'll just help you relax so you can get to sleep. It's a root vegetable that's harvested and dried and pulverized into a powder, or is extracted and placed into an essence, such as a base of alcohol or a base of glycerin, vegetable glycerin. But be that as it may, however it's formulated, it's an herb, and it's sold over the counter, and it's a relaxing herb. Oddly enough, if you take valerian, say 1 capsule of valerian, let's say 500 milligrams, whatever the capsule size is, an hour or two or whatever prior to peeing and drinking your pee will actually be desirable. You'll want to drink all of it. Oddly enough, especially if you're the type who has vata dosha imbalance. According to Ayurveda, namely, you think too much. You're an overthinker, and hence you worry, paranoia, whatever it is you're prone to. This herb will actually get you to want to drink all of your pee. Of course, it helps if you add a little lemon. In my case, because I haven't been doing this for a while. But I have a psychosomatic illness, and it's called foot cramps. And I also have fidgety feet, but that's not a problem. The problem is foot cramps. I can get it in the middle of the night from the deepest sleep, when my blood pressure has dropped to the lowest, my body temperature has dropped to the lowest, my brain activity has dropped to the lowest. Only then it'll hit me in all irony. It's the most torturous thing to happen when you're in the deepest sleep, to have this horrific, painful foot cramps, and your foot curls up into a claw, and you cannot straighten it out, no matter what you try to do. And if you attempt to, it just injures the muscle more than it is already being injured, because the muscle locks up into this contraction mode, and it will not release itself. And so being that it's not releasing itself, it's still undergoing contraction, it's straining, it's ripping the muscle fibers. And the longer it's like that, the more injured the muscle becomes. It's no pretty picture. And I was having this, and I had various remedies I was trying out, like salt, was one remedy, and, it's mild. But when I got a very severe case, nothing helped. And for very long. An hour later, it would start coming back. And I couldn't readily walk to the bathroom. I wasn't in the bathroom. I was in the kitchen, so I thought, what the hell? I'll pee into a cup and pour it down the drain. And then I thought to myself, well, why pour it away? Why don't you drink it just for the hell of it, Okay, so I drank it, and within 1 minute, it stopped. My foot cramps stopped. I had 2 of them, one in each leg, simultaneously going on in my shins just above the ankles. I couldn't stand up. I had to get into a crouch position near the floor. It was horrible. So whatever you may think about pee drinking, it works. If you have a brain that is causing you to be ill, if in some way or a manner, and psychosomatically ill. And then in this case, it was foot cramps, and it just took care of it in 1 minute, and it did not come back for 24 hours. So that I think that's pretty good. I'd say that's very good. Anywho, I learned that I'm a little older now, and I'm a little more... I never had foot cramps a decade ago when I first introduced myself to the internet of pee drinking, auto-urine therapy, and experimented it on myself. I didn't have foot cramps. I didn't have these psychosomatic problems that I have now. I did have overthinking, that's true. I did worry a lot, but of course I had a lot to worry about. It wasn't made up. Some of it might have been, though, because when a brain becomes overthinking, you don't know. what's real anymore that you're worrying about. What's a realistic worry versus an unrealistic worry. You just worry about everything. So you worry about the state of the humanity, I mean, regardless of whether or not you need to, regardless of whether or not you're responsible for humanity, Anyway, so I didn't have the kind of problems I have now. I didn't have foot cramping, severe foot cramping. And foot cramping also bothers me if I get cold, if my feet get cold. And they can, under various circumstances, get cold, and then I'll have a foot cramp when I least want it to, like while I'm driving. When I was Uber driving, and when I used to do Uber driving, I don't anymore. They don't like me, and I don't like them. The driver's side, it's nice to get a ride, right? But to work as a driver, I don't do that anymore, but I would get foot cramps on my right foot, my accelerator pedal foot, and it wasn't good. I'd have to put my right foot aside and drive with my left foot and brake with my left foot at the same time, which is no small deal, because I didn't know what to do at that time. It took me a while to figure out, oh yeah, salt's pretty good. So I always carried salt in the car, in case I need it. Salty pretzels, one way or another, get salt into me, and then have plenty to drink, because I'm going to get thirsty. But I needed something better. And most of my cramping occurs at night anyway. Usually it doesn't happen in the daytime. So what I've done is I now drink my pee all night long. And I don't drink all of it. I may just take a sip. But if I take valerian at the beginning of the evening, then I'm going to want to drink all my pee whenever I drink it, which is all night long, from sundown to sunup. And it's quite a distinct difference. I mean, it's like my body a switch is turned on. I just want to drink all of it. But without the valerian to help me, I don't. I don't want to have anything to do with it, even with lemon in there. It simply tastes better. It doesn't mean I want to drink it. But with valerian, I suspect, the kidneys are getting rid of some excessive chemistry from the valerian herb. That's what I'm suspecting, that the body has digested and absorbed into the bloodstream. And it's showing up in the pee and making the pee desirable from a physiological standpoint. My sensibility for taste recognizes that there's something in the pee that I want, and so I end up drinking all of it, regardless of how it tastes, regardless of whether I put lemon in there or not. That's just to make it taste better, but I'm still desiring it, all of it, regardless of how well I've made it taste, all because there's valerian residues in the pee, which is very interesting. For a physiology to recognize that it has a psychosomatic disorder in the Vata dosha of Ayurvedic medicine is quite remarkable. It shows that Ayurveda is real. I already knew that, but it's a controlled experiment, if you will, that vindicates that Ayurveda is reality. It's not a made-up fiction. It really means something. However they organize their knowledge about the physiology, they did it in their own way, and it works. It actually is true.